actually. Welcome to Thinking Green. I am Janice Janostak, and I'll be your host this evening for what is actually the last episode of Thinking Green until October. The show's going to take a little summer hiatus. So right now I have, I'm very pleased to welcome some friends. My guests tonight are Jamie Lee, who is the director of the New London Healing Arts Center, and Marc Mastrandrea, please tell me I got that right, who is a licensed clinical acupuncturist.
Yes.
And you practice in New York as well as New London and Waterford. Mm-hmm. And if you watch the Thinking Green program, you probably are very familiar with my two guests. They're movers and shakers in the New London Healing Arts community. And if you go to Fiddlehead's Co-op, you're certainly familiar with Jamie because she's also, in addition to a member, she's a member of the board of directors there. Marc and Jamie, thank you very much for being on the show tonight.
And thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Now, you said to me, this is sort of in a way, a two-parter. We already had a part one with Mark Roberts and his wife Leslie, Foods That Heal. Mm-hmm. You're sort of part two of the program, but you've got a specific emphasis tonight. And you said, Jamie, it was Foods That Heal digestion.
Aids in digestion.
Now, I remember when I was a kid, and the idea of somebody having poor digestion was your grandmother ate prunes and had to take Metamucil, and it was something that affected old people. Nowadays, there's celiac disease, there's GERD, there's acid reflux, there's every cereal in the grocery store, touts how much brand they have and so forth. Mm-hmm. What happened? Do all of us really have digestive problems, or are we just more aware of how many of our physical problems might be linked to what we're eating?
Well, in Chinese medicine, the basics for all of this goes back to your body's energy, where it pulls energy from. And if you want to look at the basis of it, you should be pulling all of your energy from your digestion and your breath. So oxygen in and food in should be 100% of the energy you're using. However, due to lack of sleep, lack of deep breathing, not stretching, not exercising, poor foods, we're pulling on what the Chinese would call pre-birth energy from the kidneys, the adrenals, to keep us going. Hence why we have in the last 10 years, you've seen a massive increase in the energy drink market. Red Bull, they have all these different drinks, 5-hour energy, this, that, whatever. They all spike the adrenals. And in Chinese medicine, that's kidney yang. And kidney yang it's a battery given to you at birth, basically. The kidneys have an energy given to you at birth, according to the Chinese. And when that spikes, you drain the adrenals. And you drain that energy, which is associated with longevity, with living a long time. Right. So we want to use more energy from the foods we digest than from the adrenals.
So basically what we're doing when we're taking Red Bull and things like that, it's sort of like when we're drinking a lot of coffee or a lot of soda, or actually just taking drugs, period.
Exactly. Yes.
It's backfiring.
Yes.
We get that short spike of energy, and then the tumble downwards, and then we need more to feel better.
Exactly.
Now, for a long time, I think Americans, we've kind of, if you look at all the fast foods out there and packaged foods, haven't we kind of plowed through for a long time with the notion that we don't need help to digest anything? You just eat food and our stomach and everything just digests magically and we can take it.
Yes, unfortunately we have. And now we're seeing these chronic degenerative disorders occurring, specifically in the digestion. Such as, well, you named a couple, celiac, GERD, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is a massive just kind of pantheon umbrella which just describes bowel issues in general, and a lot of them they can't figure out the exact origin of them, or it's not easy because there are multiple areas where they come from. Crohn's is another large one. Diverticulitis, diverticulosis. And diverticulosis, the intestines literally lose strength in the wall and they outpouch, and then food can get stuck in them. And if you get inflammation, then you get diverticulitis. So then you have infections in your intestines, and it does not go well.
Right. But if you go to a doctor or whatever, they're going to give you a pill, which may, again, create more problems than it solves. So what's the alternative?
Well, one of the things that I want to mention is that they have found that with some of those diseases, it's all based on their diet, that some of those diseases are coming into effect, and it's also affecting people who younger and younger.
Right.
Used to be things that people would get as they got older, but now we're seeing disease hitting younger and younger generations. Even cancer. I mean, so you can start to see that in younger kids.
Right.
People in their 20s are getting breast cancer. So it all affects, you know, different diseases and stuff. But yeah, one of the things that research has shown is that some of the digestive issues come from, you know, diets that are really high in protein or high in starches and not really getting a lot of the whole foods in their diet to help with the digestion.
So what's the first step? Is it just if we drop certain things, then we'll be fine? Are there specific foods that will really help with us, or is it different for everybody, whether you have GERD, whether you have celiac, or whether you just don't feel so great? In other words, is there a specific kind of pathway, or is it different for everybody?
It's going to be different for everybody. You can't sit there and just say, okay, you can follow this diet and you'll be fine. It really depends on what's going on with the body. But there's certain foods that people can eat. Like some people can't take gluten, so they'd have to stay away from anything that had gluten. And there's certain grains that people can take that are not gluten that would be okay for their diet.
Now, what are those alternatives? Because even I get confused what's really gluten-free. Like when I made something and I think it's gluten-free and somebody says, no, that's kind of on the borderline for me, like spelt, for instance. And somebody said, yeah. What does that really, I mean, what things really are gluten-free?
Oh, well, pretty much your fruits and vegetables.
Right. I mean, in
People
terms
know
of
that.
like whole grains.
The grains and things like that. Quinoa is one that people can take. Let's see, millet? Is that
Quinoa, millet, amaranth, brown rice, sorghum. These are major gluten-free grains. Now, glutinous rice, which in the West we call glutinous rice, doesn't actually have gluten in it. We call it glutinous because it's like the term comes from it being glued together. Sticky rice, sometimes we refer to it as. And that stickiness is due to a sugar in it called amylose pectin. And amylose pectin, so when it gets steamed, these short and medium grain rices stick together. The long grain rices don't have that.
Right.
Now, that won't affect a celiac patient. However, as you get deeper into this, you have something where you have, in the Chinese we call dampness, and that's an accumulation of fluids, a slowing in the metabolism of foods. You can get swelling in the body. Gluten has the same effects inside the body as this dampness. So the sugar, amylose pectin, can have some similar effects of slowing and making the digestion sluggish as gluten can. So even though it's not gluten, it can in some cases irritate the body like gluten can.
Now, is that true? Is that just true of white rice or of brown rice? Because I know, like a few years ago, it's like white rice is a no-no. You know, only make brown rice. So is that true as well?
Well, the glutinous rice is essentially short and medium grain rices are pretty much glutinous rices.
Okay.
You unless
Brown
you are
or
very
white?
very weak, brown or white.
Okay.
Unless you're very very weak, you want to be sticking mostly with brown rices because the bran on the outside of the rice, the covering, that's very, very good for you. It's so healthy for you. It's unbelievable. In fact, brown rice is probably one of the most nutrient, like dense, balanced foods in nature that's easily accessible to people all over the world. It regulates blood sugar. It helps to lower cholesterol. There are so many things it does. In a lot of countries, they use brown rice. They use rice bran or wheat bran. For example, countries like China, they put diabetics on diets of this bran. And in the bran, you have manganese, chromium, zinc. You have these minerals that actually regulate blood sugar. And they're supposed to work together with the what we call the simpler carbohydrates inside the rice to put the nutrients where they need to go in the body. When you don't have that bran, you have issues that we have today, the diabetes, from young children to older people. And they waste away in our pancreas. They form a very acidic environment in our bodies, and that's why we're constantly working back towards whole foods, like she said, a whole food diet of whole grains. You'll even find with whole grains, for example, if you go really back to truly whole grains, such as if you want to go back with wheat, because everybody knows wheat has gluten. If you go back to wheat, virtually no one in the world is allergic to wheat berries. But once you start to refine it, then the allergies begin to pop out because you no longer have the synergy of the whole food balancing itself. You have pieces coming out that aren't balancing each other or offsetting effects of something that wouldn't normally exist solo in nature.
So what that actually does is sometimes it creates either a deficiency or a excessiveness in the diet because of that imbalance. So you might start to see where there's a deficiency in a type of mineral or toxicity because of the imbalance.
So really, it's not that wheat is bad. It's not that wheat is the villain. It's the way it's that we process it and mill it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But people can, for instance, get sprouted bread or make sprouted bread. For instance.
Sprouted bread is great. Sourdough is another. These breads that you sprout, oftentimes you have much less exacerbated reactions to what's occurring in the sprouted breads. Also, the big thing is our genetic modification of these plants has gotten to the point where a plant such as some of these basic grains, which the amount of chromosomes in these plants 100 years ago was only half of what they are today. And meaning, so say, now these numbers aren't exact, but I'm going to give you an idea. So say wheat, at the turn of the century, had 12 chromosomes in it. A lot of wheat today runs around with 24 chromosomes in it due to genetic modification, due to all these things that are going on with like trying to genetically process things so they grow in all sorts of environments, so we can grow mass quantities, so they have bigger fruiting of the wheat stalk itself, this, that, whatever. When you have those excesses in chromosomes, sometimes scientists will splice them with things. Say, for example, I've seen articles where they've tried to splice, say, tomatoes with flounder genes so that they don't, or fluke genes, so they don't freeze in the wintertime. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I have.
So what does that do? How does our body determine that? Now, you can't play that off and say, like, people will try to play it off and say, well, it's not a big deal, it's just a gene. Well, genes are the very foundation. They're what actually talk to each other in our cells, a lot of things. So when you have that, you can't just play that off and say, oh, we can just do this, we can just do that, because we see what just milling wheat does to us. So now what happens when you throw extra chromosomes? Chromosomes that don't naturally splice themselves into wheat. So now you have these issues, and if you look at, since the 80s, there's a graphs that you can find online that will show the market increase in genetic modification of our foods. And if there's a mirroring graph of the rise in food allergies, and they literally shadow each other. And that's due to our experimentation with our foods, our lack of regulation. If certain companies, want to put these out on the market, how come they don't want them labeled? There's another thing you can ask. So that's why you always want to go back to as many whole organic foods as possible, locally grown as much as you can, where you know the farmer, you know that this is going on. This is like it's a big push. Where I'm from in New York City, we do a lot of this. You're always trying to get locally grown stuff. I know when I come up here, they have farmers markets. You really want to you'll be healthier that way. A lot of these foods are grown in season. They're much more healthy for you. The soil they're grown in locally relates to the seasons you go through. Hence, they'll have more nutrition that's specific towards where you live, which is also a very important thing.
And that's something, Jamie, I've heard about a lot. We should eat seasonally, which is kind of tough. I mean, we live here in the north, and one of the wonderful things is that in wintertime, we get citrus fruit, we get grapefruit, and believe me, I was putting blood oranges in everything. But in terms of, like, if we're looking at, for instance, a book on Chinese medicine or a book on, any sort of other system, is that the thing we should be looking at? Is that seasonal for us?
And that was actually a tough call for me because coming from California, I mean, pretty much all fruits were in season all the time. So, we weren't as limited as when I came here. Having access to the fruits that I typically had in California, I had to change my way of eating, which actually impacted me health-wise. I actually talked to Marc a lot about, what I'm eating and how I'm eating and things like that. So,
how did it impact you?
I wasn't getting the same daily fruits that I was having, in California. So like strawberries and blueberries and all of that stuff that I would get during the wintertime, I wasn't getting that here. So, it's, okay, now finding out what can I eat that is going to give me that kind of whole, complete diet.
Right.
Because that was one of the things that, it changed when I moved here. But yeah, so going back to the seasonal foods, but also making sure that you get the grains in as well, and it's the whole foods. Did you want to mention the book?
Yeah, there's a book that's very prominent that I practice. A lot of my practice comes from. It's called Healing with Whole Foods, by Paul Pitchford.
I have a copy.
You have a copy. It's excellent. It's sold.
It's like a Bible.
Yeah,
It's my Bible. Yeah, when it comes to it, it's sold 250,000 copies. The man is amazing. It's a life's work. He will teach you in it he'll teach you the basic tenets of Chinese medicine, just as any decent Western diet book would teach you the basic tenets of like the physiology behind Western dieting. He'll also go over many Western diets, including paleo diets and eating for your blood type diets. He'll explain the pros and the cons. He'll go over the Ansel Keys study, which is the big one that talks about having the carbohydrates and the proteins and less fats. He'll talk about how he altered his statistics, and it's been documented in so many cases how his end was flawed. His results were flawed. But for some reason, doctors today, nutritionists today, they go back to the Ansel Keys study. They cite the study when it has been shown time and time again that it is a completely flawed study. He'll go on and he'll tell you how foods in the West we look at based on carbohydrate, protein, and lipid content. So, and we look at the calories. The Chinese don't look at it like that. They look at it based on what organs does this food feed? So for example, carbohydrates don't matter as much if it's a whole carbohydrate. So for example, simple sugars would obviously be stored mostly as fat, but complex sugars, such as sweet potato, are excellent for your digestion. And they would be stored, they would help both the intestines and the stomach. They'll strengthen the pancreas. So in the Chinese medicine, they relate things to flavors. So the flavors of foods. So you have 5 basic flavors. You have salty, sweet, bitter, spicy, and pungent. And each of those flavors relate to a different organ. Now, depending on how you mix your foods, you can treat the different major organ groups. Now we can think of certain things in the West seem kind of common. So for example, sweet strengthens what the Chinese would call the digestive system. They call it, when it's translated to the West, it's called the stomach and the spleen. The words in Chinese are actually wei and pi. Pi doesn't mean the spleen, because a lot of people would say, oh, it's the spleen. Spleen doesn't have anything to do with digestion. Well, the Chinese looked at the spleen and the pancreas together. They were a working unit.
Right.
So when you look at it like that, that makes sense. So they would work the pancreas. It'll work the pancreas and the stomach and the intestines. But too much sweet would weaken it, because now you think of today, too much sugar, too much candy, people get diabetes from that. So they had this going on for many, many, many years. Things like pungent things strengthen the lungs.
What now? Pungent, like
Onions.
Okay.
Onions are pungent. Now, any allium plant will induce sweating. So if you are coming out to, just like we talk about here in the West, for example, a pathogen comes in, you catch a cold. Now you have trouble breathing. You catch a cold, it gets into your lungs, say, oh, we're coughing a lot. Allium plants are pungent, the Chinese. They'll strengthen the lungs to induce sweating, because the lungs are in charge of sweating, according to the Chinese. In the process, they'll push out the cold you've caught. So the Chinese would make a scallion tea or scallion broth and drink it, or they would make miso soup with extra scallions, and they would drink that, and and then go under covers. You would actually sweat out, and you'd feel better in the morning. And I have a lot of my patients do this. My family does this. It's the avoidance of a lot of antibiotics, a lot of pungent things. Another thing would be like garlic. Although that's spicy and pungent, garlic is a very strong natural antibiotic. If you're ever traveling in another country, for example, Pitchford will talk about this in his book. 2 cloves of garlic a day will keep away most dysentery that you could ever catch in another country. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
Garlic is everywhere. It's all across the world. Knowing what organs these foods affect and eating accordingly, you'll definitely be able to stay healthy in the winter or the summer or the fall. And you eat accordingly. So things change. So how you cook things is another way. Now, did you get in Healing with Whole Foods? They talk about cooking. They talk about steaming or baking, or what different energies happen in the foods. For example, in the wintertime it's colder, we need to cook our foods more. In the summertime we can eat rawer foods. So a lot of people eat salads in the wintertime. That's really, you can do that, but if you're somebody who's constantly cold and you're constantly eating salads, you're going to chill yourself more. So you should at least steam or be eating cooked greens.
Right.
Basics like that. Greens tend to be bitter. They tend to be cooling in the body. So any raw greens will be extra cool. So you should, if you want to really heat yourself up, bake your greens. If you want to lightly heat yourself up, steam your greens. Say if it's something spicy though, steaming can reduce the spice of a spicy, food, and so it can actually cool you slightly. So there are all sorts of ways that this interacts. So depending on the person and the season, you want to alter according to those.
So right now it's summertime and I'm picking the greens, the tatsoi and the chard out of my garden. I'm just eating them raw.
There you go.
Because my body wants it, so that's exactly what I need to be listening to them.
However, if you, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
If your digestion, if your digestion is weak, or if you're sick, you wouldn't want to be eating them raw. So say if you were somebody who's still cold in the summertime, no matter what, you have to sit out in the sun and you still don't sweat. You would need to be still cooking your greens in the summertime because you still can't get enough yang energy to heat things up. And now if you can't get enough yang energy, you'll call upon the kidneys and the adrenals to spike to help you digest the food and to help run your body because you're not pulling enough energy from your food. So it all goes back to draining those kidneys again if you're not getting enough energy from your food.
So if somebody's on a raw diet, for instance, no cooking whatsoever, I mean, does that would still, they'd still have to like make an exception when they're sick and say, hey, I need that their body still.
This is
Or is
the,
this-
this is the catch. Okay, this is the catch.
controversial
Yes.
territory.
Well, no, it's all right because you know what? What I tell people is it's all personable. So raw diets for some people, for a small percent of the population, they can be fine. Their digestion is completely strong enough to deal with it. Those people who are very robust. They go out, they do this. Some people do raw diets. They get a ton of energy. They're like, oh, I get all this energy. Why? The argument in raw diets is because when you cook things, you destroy their nutrition content,
Right. That's
which
what
makes
you're
sense.
told, yeah.
However, if you can't break down these foods to begin with, and a lot of people can't due to our normal diets, and then due to the climate we live in, you can't break down these foods to begin with, you're going to get 0% of zero, or very little. But if you cook them or steam them, and you're only left with, say, 10% of those nutrients, you're going to get 100% of those nutrients, 100% of that 10% of nutrients left, which is a lot more than you'll get by just eating the raw foods if your digestion isn't strong enough. But some people can do raw diets. Now that short spike that some people find of energy in raw diets, that's their adrenal spiking because they're trying to pull energy from their food. That's that kidney yang spiking. So the people who spike and get a lot of energy then drop off later on, they shouldn't be doing raw diets and you have some people who do that. They say, oh, I got really cold, I couldn't get any energy afterwards. That's because your digestion wasn't strong enough to continue with the raw diets, so you can't do it. Now some people do a lot of raw juicing. I say add warming herbs to that.
That's become sort of controversial, hasn't it? Because it used to be juicing, oh, it's a great thing, And lately I've been reading some things that suggest a little moderation is in order.
Well, yeah, it's easier for the body to digest when you start doing a little bit of the juicing. But if you add the warming to it, that actually helps as well. And you can, and actually, just talking about what Mark had said, is if you just lightly steam something, according to the Paul Pitchford's book, you still get like about 90% of the nutrients. So going back to what he said, if you get 100% of 90, that's better than zero of 100%.
But then you still want to try to get organic or
Yes.
farmer's pledge or
Absolutely.
natural,
All the
because
time.
if you're not, then you're not even, those nutrients aren't even there to begin
The
with.
three most pesticide-filled vegetables and fruits are apples, strawberries, and celery. And those everybody buys. So always get organic.
Why those three? I mean, because there's a lot of produce that we buy that's very water-based. Celery.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Celery, strawberries,
Oh, okay.
and apples are the three most pesticide-filled found in scientific studies. So if they're the most pesticide-filled fruits that we have, we want to be going as much organic as possible because everybody has strawberries and apples and celery probably at least once a week, or once a month.
Well, something I always wondered about that, we were told, oh, wash your fruit. Wash your fruit, blah, 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 and it still does. But if there's pesticides on my apple, and on my apple, and I'm just peeling it, isn't the pesticide also inside in the flesh? I mean, it's the
Because of the soil that it's growing
Right.
from, and that's my contention, is that even though you have all these other fruits and vegetables and things like that, I think where Mark is going is that some of those other fruits and vegetables are heavily more sprayed than the other ones. But yeah, you're still talking about in the soil, any fruit or vegetable is going to have some of that, when it's growing. So as much as you can go organic, that's really what you want to be doing. But if you can't, and you can only stick with some of them because people say that price is an issue.
Right.
I haven't found it to be that issue. If you can't go organic, go local.
Right.
A local farmer may not be organic, but they may be more organic than a big organic farmer,
Right, it's the
because of
idea
the
of-
regulations.
Right, it's the idea of farmers pledge. They're growing, I've talked to farmers locally who say, I can't afford $2,000 or how much it costs to get that little government seal of approval, but I am growing in the organic methods that have been, the way people have been doing it for decades.
And sometimes even more so than what other farmers are doing, because because of regulations, they can kind of skirt around certain things when it comes to growing organically. So sometimes going local, you're actually getting something that's even more organic than some of the bigger farmers.
Well, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little break for about 7 minutes, and the folks at home are going to look at the community calendar, upcoming important events in the region. We will be right back in just a few moments to continue our conversation. Do give us a phone call. Join us on the conversation. I'll see you in just a little while.
Back when Eisenhower was the president, golf courses is where most of his time was spent. So I never really listened to what the president said, because in general I believed that the general was politically dead. But he always seemed to know when the muscles were about to be flexed, because I remember him saying something, mumbling something about a military-industrial complex. Americans no longer fight to keep their shores safe, just to keep the jobs going in the arms-making workplace. And then they pretend to be gripped by some sort of political reflex. But all they're doing is paying dues to the military-industrial complex. Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. The military and the monetary get together whenever they think it's necessary. They turn our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning the planet to a cemetery. The military and the monetary use the media as intermediaries. They are determined to keep the citizens secondary. They make so many decisions that are arbitrary. We're marching behind the commander-in-chief who was standing under a spotlight shaking like a leaf. But the ship of state had landed on an economic reef, so we knew he was going to bring us messages of grief. The military and the monetary were shielded by January and went storming into February. Brought us pot-bellied generals as luminaries. 2 weeks ago I hadn't heard the sumbitch, now all of a sudden he's legendary. They took the honor from the honorary, they took the dignity from the dignitaries, they took the secrets from the secretary, but they left the bitch an obituary. The military and the monetary from thousands of miles away in a Saudi Arabian sanctuary had us all scrambling for our dictionaries because we couldn't understand the fucking vocabulary. Yeah, there was some smart bombs, but there were some dumb ones as well. Scared the hell out of CNN in that Baghdad hotel. The military and the monetary, they get together whenever they think it's necessary. War in the desert sometimes sure is scary, but they beamed out the war to all their subsidiaries, tried to make so damn insane a worthy adversary, keeping the citizens secondary, scaring old folks into coronaries. The military and the monetary from thousands of miles in a Saudi Arabian sanctuary kept us all wondering if all of this was really, truly necessary. We've got to work for peace. Peace ain't coming this way. If we only work for peace, if everyone believed in peace the way they say they do, we'd have peace. The only thing wrong with peace is that you can't make no money from it. The military and the monetary, they get together whenever they think it's necessary. They've turned our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning the planet into a cemetery. Got to work for peace. Peace ain't coming this way. We should not allow ourselves to be misled by talk of entering a time of peace. Peace is not the absence of war, it is the absence of the rumors of war and the threats of war and the preparation for war. Peace Peace is not the absence of war. It is the time when we will all bring ourselves closer to each other, closer to building a structure that is unique within ourselves because we have finally come to peace within ourselves. Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. Get together whenever they think it's necessary. They have turned our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning parts of the planet into a cemetery. What you gonna do? Military and the monetary. Military and the monetary. What you gonna do? We hounded the Ayatollah religiously, bombed Libya and killed Gaddafi's son hideously. We turned our back on our allies, the Panamanians, and saw Ali North selling guns to the Iranians. Watched Gorbachev slaughtering Lithuanians. We better warn the Amish, they may bomb the Pennsylvanians. Military and the monetary. Get together whenever they think it's necessary. They have turned our brothers and sisters into mercenaries. They are turning the planet into a cemetery. They got folks out there working for war. 2, 3, 4. Make a whole lot of money, start a little trouble, it's a war. Turn this planet into north and south, it's a war. Start a few rumors over there, make money with a war. Peace. Say it to yourself. I believe we got to work for peace. Peace ain't gonna be free, you gotta work for peace. You believe in peace, gotta go to work. They got folks out there working for war. Start a little trouble over here, what you got is a war. Turn these folks in the north and south, it's a war. Start a little trouble over here, what you got is a war. Tell everybody you know, we gotta work for peace. Gotta work, gotta work. You believe in peace, time to go to work. I don't want to sound like no late night commercial, but it's a matter of fact that there are thousands of children all over the world, in Asia and Africa and in South America, who need our help. When they start talking about 55 cents a day and 70 cents a day, I know a lot of folks feel as though that's not really any kind of contribution to make, but we have to give up $1.50 just to get in the subway nowadays. So this is a song about tomorrow and about how tomorrow can be better if we all, each one reach one, each one try to teach one. Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Everyone must play a part. Everyone got to go to work. Work for peace. Spirit say work. Work for peace. You believe, say go to work. You believe in peace, time to go to work. Can't be waving your hand no more, go to work. Everything you ever really wanted.
Money, you have like credit, and you can buy things with the credit.
Sort of like what they have in Ithaca. Or they have, yeah, or maybe, yeah, they have their own bartering system in the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. This is more than 10 seconds. Which camera? Welcome back to Thinking Green. I am Janice Janostak. We are here for the second portion of our program. And I am back with Jamie Lee and Marc Mastrandrea. That's a real tongue twister. I hope
It could be Mark.
Yeah, just Mark. Talking about foods that heal, foods that aid the digestion, a little bit about Chinese medicine and different dietary systems. And if you are interested in joining the conversation, any questions, comments, snide remarks, our phone number, long distance 800-253-2285, local 860-440-3154. Don't be shy. Welcome, come on in and have a chat with us. Jamie, you were mentioning something, just to get off topic a little bit, you were mentioning something before during our break about a local exhibit that I just wanted to kind of throw in there since it's something local and going on now.
Yes, at the Tsetse Gallery, we are doing Honoring New London, and it's part of Opsail and Sailfest. So we're having our exhibit opening Saturday, July 7th from 5 to 8. We'll have music. We have a lot of local artists displaying paintings, photographs, books, music. We're covering anything New London because New London encompasses everything.
Right. So there's a lot of opportunities for people to hang out and have fun
And then afterward, they can go and enjoy the fireworks. As I said, we're going to do a firework display afterwards.
That's
but
right.
It's really
Exactly.
not us.
Yeah.
Part of Opsail Sailfest.
Well, Jamie, while I've got you talking, tell me a little bit, if you please. You're the director of the New London Healing Arts Center.
Yes.
How long? This is a nonprofit organization.
Correct.
You're located on State Street. I know, Mark, that's where you also do, for instance, you do some of your acupuncture sessions. Full disclosure, truth in advertising, so to speak, I have gone to Mark for acupuncture sessions, and he is wonderful. Not that I'm trying to sell him, but he also does cupping and so forth. Jamie, tell me a little bit about the center. How long has it been around? And what motivated you to start, to open up the center?
Well, the Healing Arts Center has been there for over a year. We do many clinics, and really it's about wellness through education and research and helping to raise awareness about natural health and healing. So one of the things that Mark does there is he has one of the clinics. We have many clinics, and it's trying to bring affordable natural health care to people because a lot of times insurances do not cover it. So that's why we have the community clinics, to help people who want to take a natural approach to their health, whether it's preventive or if they're addressing certain issues, whether it's dietary issues, disease, aches, pains, whatever is going on with somebody, there's something at the clinic that can address it, which looks at the whole body, not just a specific symptom, not a specific disease, but looks at the person as a whole. So that's really what the center is about. And it came to be because I'm actually in the process of getting my doctorate in natural medicine. I've already have a couple of other degrees. I have a couple of certifications. This is something that's always been near and dear to me, and I figure if I can heal one person at a time, naturally, that's what my approach is. It's mind, body, and spirit, and it's looking at people holistically.
And it's something that's very affordable.
Absolutely. The community clinics are very affordable, so we do have a calendar on our website that people can see when those different clinics are going on. We try to run them each week. We also provide classes. There's all kinds of classes that are going on, and some of those classes are free, so people can come and learn. Some are based on donation, so we just encourage people that even if you don't have the money, come and learn. We don't want to turn people away from getting educated.
And what is if people want to look at the calendar for the clinics to find out more, where should they go? What's the website?
Oh, the website is NL, like New London, healingartscenter.org.
Okay. The .org is very
Yes.
important. As you explained to me, that's your nonprofit organization.
Exactly,
So
yes.
go ahead and repeat that. That's www.nl.
NL, like New London, healingartscenter.org.
And what sort of practitioners? I mean, obviously you have Mark, who's an acupuncturist.
Yes.
What other sorts of practitioners?
We
are
have
part of this?
licensed massage therapists there. We also have somebody who does some shamanic work. We have Reiki sessions. We have biomat sessions. We have all kinds of things going on. I encourage people to even just stop in at the center. We have a clinic going on tomorrow, so people can stop by, even if they just want to get some information. We have information that they can take with them, so they don't necessarily have to come to the clinic, but at least they can find out what's going on as far as classes, other clinics, and we try to do complimentary sessions as well. So
It seems like there's more and more practitioners in the area of Reiki and the different healing arts, but there really hasn't been anything like this center before. Everybody's been sort of practicing on individually, so it's hard to bring it all together.
Right, and that's what I've been hoping to do, is bring a community of practitioners together, because a lot of people have been working autonomously and on their own, and sometimes struggling, because that's hard to do as a practitioner. But if we can build a community where people can come together and share their practice, their expertise, That's what we're trying to create there.
Because that's a lot of work, just building clients and building all of that and doing the business of making a business when you're also trying to do that other, which is the actual practice of healing. I mean, that's true for anybody who works for themselves.
Exactly. So I try to remove that so that people can focus on their practice and not have to worry about, okay, I got to pay the phone bill, or I got to pay the rent, or I got to pay, this, or I got to advertise that. So a lot of things go on the calendar. We have meetup groups. We have Patch. So Facebook. Follow us on Facebook. We put a lot of things out there. One of the things that we like to also bring to people's attention is thermography. We do that quarterly at the center, so people have an alternative to getting mammograms or other things, so they can come and do thermography testing.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Thermography testing looks for inflammation in the body, and it uses heat to look for that inflammation. What we do is we take it a step further. Like, if some people just go for breast thermography, and that's fine, and that can detect early breast cancer and that sort of thing. But the whole body thermography testing actually looks at the complete body, the organs and everything, and can tell when things might start to come in question and what you may need to focus on. You get a complete report that can be shared with your doctor.
Now, if somebody puts into practice some of the things that we've talked about, or that we've talked about on earlier shows about changing your diet, if you do sort of like, does that show up in a sense? In other words, if you do a thermography before, and then a month or years down the road, do you see that? Do you see the difference?
Absolutely.
How does that show up?
Yeah, you would actually start to see if you were having issues with certain things with your organs, thyroid, things like that, and you start to change your diet, and you put in, because they will actually give you recommendations on things that you can do. It'll even find toxins in the body. So if you start to make changes to your diet, sweet potato is a good example, helps remove toxins from the body. So if you started to make changes to your diet and you went and got tested again, you're going to start to see some of those things start to change.
And let me ask you, how did the two of you come together? Mark, your practice is primarily in New York. You're also practicing at a local clinic in Waterford and at the Healing Arts Center. Jamie, what is the address?
It's 165 State Street.
On the 4th floor.
Yes, Harris Place building, right next to City Hall.
So how did the two of you hook up, so to speak?
We what happened was I had moved back from New York, and I was trying to get something together, and I didn't really have anything. And somebody had mentioned to me, go to these. They're having an open house at Fiddleheads, and there's going to be a bunch of people there. So that's where I went. And Jamie was there, and she said, "Why don't you come to the next one I'm going to throw?" So I went to the next one. And she said, "Well, I have the center. Maybe you can do," because I went to this next one. It was at it was an old folks home at Waterford. And they all.
I think that's very politically
I'm sorry,
correct,
but that's just what it was. Anyways, but yet everybody. Here goes to the next very. Not politically correct thing. Most of them went to the hearing aid guy, and very few other people.
Like, what is it, audiologist or something?
Yeah, whatever it is, doing tests. They were great. They're great.
Ken and Kim protest.
No, they're great. But most of them went there because that's what they were focused on. A lot of them weren't focused. Like, we had a lot of things going on, and most of the rest of the things stayed blank. So a lot of people wandered around. So that's where people really started networking, and that's where I met a lot of people. Jamie came over and introduced himself more. Some other people came over, and from there they said that there's this place, maybe you could run a clinic. So we tried one. I think we did one. It was one we sat around on for like hours, and nobody showed up. And then people started coming, but it was kind of like up and down, and slowly over time, it started to we started to get solid patients who didn't go away. And next thing you know, I started bringing patients in that I was privately treating in their own home, who some of the patients, either they had no medical insurance or they refused Western medical care. So I was their essentially primary care provider. And they started coming to the center, and more of them started coming. And in the beginning it was very tough, but we slowly work it up. And sometimes, again, just as New London can be up and down, it can be up and down there. But the down is getting a little higher than it was before. So I'm not sitting there with nobody anymore. Some days I might only see 4 people. That's generally my lowest on a day now, which is great compared to before it was 0. So it's raising, and people are telling people about it, and it's being advertised. And since then, that's pretty much what we've done.
And there's been times where every table has been filled.
Yeah. So
went in there, and sometimes I ended up having to wait because I've actually get treatment. Matter of fact, I need to get treatment tomorrow. But
Right.
Yeah, tomorrow we have a clinic from 10 to 5, and it's basically, you can walk in, and or you can email. You can find the email address at the Healing Arts Center website.
Yep, you can actually info at.
Healing Arts Center.
Actually, it's info@wellnessnaturally.org. That would come to me.
Right.
But also, you could call me. The phone number, contact information's on there, so people can email
Right.
and set up a time. It actually makes it a little bit better, so you're not waiting as long if you can book a time. But certainly, if you're not sure of your schedule, you can certainly walk in. Just sometimes you may have to wait.
It's a great spot. Honestly, it's a great spot, especially for people who can't afford most of what mainstream acupuncture charges. Because I treat in many places. I treat at Center for Healing Therapies right here in Waterford on Boston Post Road. They're a
Just
great place, literally across the street. Those are all private treatments, but they're substantially more money because you're getting the private treatments and you're getting the one-on-one session in that case. But the nice thing about Healing Arts Center is that they offer you something that many people won't be able to access. They offer you the ability to get full Chinese medical treatment for an affordable price. You just have to share your space with other people. It's not a one-on-one thing, but plenty of people are satisfied with that. So they come see me there, and it turns out very, very, very good. You have a lot of people who are able to avoid hefty bills that they would have had to pay otherwise. You have people coming for issues. I've treated at Healing Arts Center therapy. Healing Arts Center, I've treated everything from bleeding disorders to infertility. I've treated a range of things, and these patients have seen results. Not just results. We have patients who are now, some of them are pregnant, and we have patients who had clotting issues and now they're clotting. I mean, and these patients never did a Western route. Not saying that you shouldn't do a Western route. I'm just saying they never did, and they found results. So these are big things that are out there, and you can treat these things many different ways. And it's just very holistically, systemically. You were talking about thermography before, and do you see results? Well, most people have, a lot of people, due to our high protein diets and high starch diets, have systemic inflammation. We have a lot of omega-6. So the balance is always omega-3, omega-6. It's not that omega-6 is bad, it's that it needs to be in balance with a certain amount of omega-3. Because there are diets where omega-6 is deficient, and you actually need to take omega-6 products to put yourself. There are actually symptoms of omega-6 deficiency, this whole balance.
Such as?
I can't tell you symptoms off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I deal mostly with,
Mark, you know everything.
But I deal mostly with omega-3 deficiencies. But you'll find systemic inflammation in most of these people. And so what happens is when you deal with whole foods and they start to clear inflammation, because you're getting things with higher omega-6 or that are whole, they don't irritate the body, causing issues with the cells. You're going to find, example in thermography, you're going to find systemic inflammation go down. You're going to find, and systemic inflammation is heat, so you're going to find your body temperature, especially around the joints, is going to go down. We treat that in acupuncture too. We do a lot of things. People don't realize this, but acupuncture was developed in China to be medicine. They don't call it, oh, let me go for Chinese medicine. Let me just go get treated by a doctor. So when you come down sick, I've treated patients with the flu. I've treated Lyme patients who are full-blown Lyme disease at the Healing Arts Center. People who come in, they have the flu, they've been vomiting for the last 2 days, come down with severe sore throats. Chinese medicine was designed to treat this stuff. For everything from pulls, strains, sprains, breaks, all the way to all of this. And that's what we treat.
I mean, the Chinese medicine that you practice is how old?
It's dated, the oldest references go back to 5,000-6,000 years. They have Ma Wang Dui silk texts that date to 3,000-4,000 years that reference books that are far older than they are. They find the earliest whole book that Chinese medicine bases itself on is called the Huangdi Neijing, which means the Yellow Emperor's Internal Classic of Medicine. And the Yellow Emperor's Internal Classic, the oldest texts we have date back to the Tang Dynasty, but they come from texts written down in the Han Dynasty about 300 in whole, about 300 AD. However, in pieces, we find these texts written down on oracle bones that are over 1,000 years older. So we know they've been written down, we just don't have a full text of them. And we know that they are even referred to in the Huangdi Neijing as a whole book is referred to in texts that are 4,000 years old. So it must have existed somewhere, we just don't have the pieces of it anymore.
So this is a system that's been in practice for a long time.
Many
and
years.
it's still, if I understand, that they use, in China they use acupuncture, and I've seen photographs where they're using it instead of
Anesthesia.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
You know, I've seen pictures of somebody having a throat operation,
Yes.
and she's
And-
wide awake.
Exactly.
Yes. There's-
Because
she's
of the
really
side
wild.
effects of anesthesia. I mean, that's dangerous. My aunt's from Okinawa, and when she came here to the States and heard about some of these different diseases, they've never even heard of a lot of the diseases we have. So they're referred to as westernized diseases.
And is it because of our treatment techniques, or is it because of our diet, or both?
It's probably mostly our diet,
Yeah.
because if you think about what their diet is compared to our diet, a lot of our diseases are westernized diseases that come from a westernized diet. So
But unfortunately, isn't our Western diet, it's becoming, McDonald's is all over the world.
yes,
No.
there actually was, I think it was last year, they made it illegal to be obese in Japan. They didn't get thrown in jail. No, they weren't thrown in jail for being overweight, but it affected their insurance rates and things like that. So they would go to a doctor, not necessarily like what we call a doctor here, but they would measure them and see their obesity rate, their body fat, and that sort of thing. And if they were considered overweight, they had to lose the weight, and they would start to see like insurance and things like that cost more for them. So they were penalized monetary wise for being overweight. Now they started to see the rise in obesity when McDonald's
Right.
popped up. And that's where they started to see the incline there. So
So the moral is, everybody else in the world, stop. Stop eating that junk we've been exporting, and we're very sorry for it. Anyway, so thank you very much, Mark and Jamie. I wish we could talk for another hour, and I think we could. Unfortunately, time is slipped
Not
away
on our
from us,
side.
and that went very quickly.
yes.
Thank you both very,
you.
very much. Remember the website, NL
HealingArtsCenter.org.
.org.
NL, like New London.
New London.
HealingArtsCenter.org.
Had Jamie Lee and Marc Mastrandrea. Also, and again, the book Mark mentioned, Healing with Whole Foods by Paul Pitchford. Check it out. It's a wonderful resource. And thank you very much for joining the show tonight. And we will be coming, Thinking Green will be returning in October. So until then, have a wonderful summer and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
There we go.
Oh, God!